Hello there. So in today's tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make cut and sew this beautiful off shoulder top with an exaggerated elastic sleeve and a front zipper. The fabric I used for this top is a doll face satin. You could go ahead and use any fabric of your choice. Then the yardage that I used is 1.5 yards of fabric. If you want your sleeves bigger than these, I think you're going to be needing more than 1.5 yards of fabric. This top is so beautiful and can just be paired to church, to outing, hangouts, and even to church, depending and what have you. So here it's also a top that is good for a breastfeeding mother because it just makes it easy for her to just open up the zipper and breastfeed her baby. So here let's get right into how to make this beautiful top. So here are the measurements that I'm going to be working with. You can go ahead and write them down and take the same measurements and use for yours. So let us get right into this. So here is my pattern paper laid on the table. The length I'm going to be using for this top is 20 inches. Please feel free to just use any length of your choice. My client really did not want, she wanted it crop, but then she didn't really want it like crop. So we had to settle for 20 inches. Please feel free to make it longer, shorter, just however you want. So here I've marked 20 inches and I've gone ahead to rule the line. So I'm going to be inserting my shoulder and my armhole. Her shoulder, my client's shoulder is 16. I divided by 2, it was 8 inches. And then for her armhole is 16.5. When I divided by 2, we had 8.5, which I inserted like so. And then next, I'm going to be marking my vertical measurements, her bust point, her underbust, and then her half length. Okay. So once I'm done doing this, here I'm marking the neckline of my client. I'm using a 3x3, even though it really has no effect on this, but I just wanted to like have a neckline. And here I went down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and I'm connecting it back into the neckline. Then I'm going to be connecting the neck shape. And I will go ahead now and I will label this, and then I'm going to start drafting the princess dart. So I'm opening up this I'm getting the midpoint and I'm going inwards on this point by 0.75, and I'm using my straight ruler to connect to that point, and then I'm going to use my curved ruler and connect it right into the down part, the length of this armhole. Please, I'd like to state that to help you understand this better, I think you should go see our video on how to draft a basic bodice, and also to watch our detailed video on how to draft a princess dart, because actually that is what I used. You can use any of the princess darts. I did 2 princess darts, the modified and the classic, so you can use either of them and do the stop. The one I'm using is a modified princess dart, so feel free to just use any type you want. Trust me, the outcome is still going to be nice. So here now on the underbust, after I have marked my bust span and I connected a straight line on the underbust, I'm marking 1.5 on the part towards the side, and then on this other center front part I'm marking 1 inch. So next thing I'm going to be doing is that I am going to come down, whatever I have there, I'm going to take out 0.25 from it, and I'm going to be marking it on the half length, and the same thing I'm going to be taking down on the length. Please follow me. So here I have marked it. The next thing I'm going to be doing is just to bring in my scissors, and I'm going to connect all 3 lines together. After doing this now, I will bring in my curve. I'm going to bring in my curve to curve this out. Please take note of how I'm placing my curve and do the same while you're doing yours. You see the way my curve is? So I'm connecting from that point into the bust point, and I turn the curve all over, and I'm connecting from that other side, the other end, into the bust point. Please take note of how I kept my curve. So this is what we have right here. The next thing I am going to be doing is to just insert the circumference measurement of my client. And for the bust here, her bust is 38.5. When I divided by 4, I had 9.6, and I took the same thing over on the armhole. Then I'll come on the underbust circumference. Her underbust circumference is 32, and I divided by 4, and I had 8 inches, and I inserted the same 8 I inserted on the half length. And then for the down part, I inserted the circumference measurement that I measured for the length of the top, like where the top is going to be. You just measure that circumference so that it really sits firm. Then I'm going ahead to use my ruler to connect all of these lines together right now. So here is what it looks like. So I'm going to be bringing in my tape, and I'm going to be measuring what I have on the armhole, just like you see me doing in the video right now. So I measured it, and I had 9 inches, and I divided it by 2 plus 1. When I divided by 2, I plus 1. So I marked whatever I had there from the shoulder all the way down on the armhole. And I used my ruler to connect a straight line from that point. Here you see me marking it. So I divided it into 2, and I'm marking it there, and I'm connecting with the straight ruler into my bust point. So on that line that I just marked now, I'm going to be going up from that bust point by 1 inch. This is to create more room for your bust area. So once I'm done doing that, on this part here, and I'm going to be opening up the dart leg by 1/2 inch on each side. Now using my ruler, I will just connect it back into that point that I'm showing you guys. So here now, I will just measure this part of the dart, and you realize it's actually, because of the shape here, it's actually longer than the other side after I measured, and I was short of this other side by 0.75, which I went ahead to add. Like I said, please do watch our video on how to draft a princess dart. It is well detailed. So I'm bringing in my curve here now to actually blend up that side, because it's actually pointy if you look at it. So the idea there is to keep moving your shape, your curve, until you get a shape that you would like. That's okay. So here I've blended it. It's no longer curvy. I blended that other side, and I blended the center front. Now once I'm done doing that, on the armhole, because of the 1 inch dart that we took out, then it means it is short by 1 inch. I went ahead to replace it there, and then I created a new armhole. Please follow me, don't get confused. So next thing I did was to now replace this darts, because they're going to go off actually. So I'm going to replace them. Whatever I had 2.5, I had to replace it on that point, and then I will now add the actual allowance I want for this top. The same thing I did for the half length, and the same thing I did for the length area. So you can see me replacing it, and then I'm going ahead to add the allowance that I want to work with. I'm actually using 2 inches allowance. So here is me connecting all the lines that I have together. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to determine the depth of the off shoulder that I want. So for me, from that start point line, I wanted 6 inches. My client didn't really want it to be so off. If you don't want it to be like, you can use even 4 inches, 5 inches, 6, 7, depends on what you want. So I went down by 6 inches, and I'm connecting it back into the line on the armhole, like the first dart on the armhole area. So after I'm done doing that, then I will now, this is really too straight, you can leave it like this, but then I wanted this other shape, kind of a little sweetheart sort of. So I went ahead to just mark that. That's like, from that point is like 2 inches, so it means from the top is like 8 inches that I marked. So I'm connecting this with a curved ruler. Please, you can actually decide to leave yours as it is, but I just wanted that, you know, kind of sweetheart kind of neckline in front, you know, not so obvious, but just little. So once I'm done doing this, I'm going ahead to just, you know, use my marker to just indicate the parts I will be cutting out on this. I told you guys in my previous video, anywhere you see me marking this type of thing, it means that I'm no longer going to use that part, I'm cutting it out. So these are the places that I'm actually going to cut out, and here I'm using my scissors to actually cut this out. So please follow me. I'm cutting the center front out, and then I'm cutting off the side, and then I go ahead to just cut this other part. Trust me, this tutorial is actually very simple if you understand how to make a princess dart. So here is for the back, and I'm marking the same 20 inches length. I'm marking down the 20 inches length for my top, and I'm going to be ruling the line. I will also go ahead and insert my, this doesn't have a zipper actually, the zipper is in front. I'm yet to add the zipper allowance. So I'm going ahead to add my armhole and my shoulder, you know, and what have you. Make sure that you watch our videos on how to draft a basic bodice. Please, it's very necessary. That's where you see the detailing of all of this. It's on the channel. Maybe I'll just link it in the description box. So here I'm marking the chest line all the way straight down. So next, from the shoulder area, that's the top line, I'm going to be marking the half length for my back. The half length for my client's back is 15 inches, while the half length for her front is 16.5 inches. So for her back is 15 inches, and I marked it. I'm going ahead to just label it, as you can see. So the next thing I'm doing is going down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and then my neck width definitely is 3, and then the depth I just ended up using 1. So I just used my curve and my straight ruler, and I connected all of these lines together. Here it is. So here I'm trying to get the midpoint for this back. So the next thing I'm going to be doing here now is to insert my measurements, the same measurement I used for the front. Like I told you guys, I divided it into 4. Her bust I divided into 4, her under bust circumference into 4, and her hip into 4. So I connected the lines. Now next, I'm going to be adding my allowance. Now because I know that I'm going to be using 1 inch to open up for the dart on the center, so I'm adding the allowance included in this. So it means instead of using 2 inches, I went ahead to use 3 inches, because that 1 inch is an extra allowance for the dart opening for the back. Don't worry, you're going to see me draw the darts now. So I just replaced everything at once instead of having to replace it again. So next, at this point, I'm going to just carve out the armhole and then go ahead to draft the back dart. So for this back dart here, the dart I'm using 4 inches. Sorry, I'm using 4 inches. 4 inches is my client's bust span. That's from one nipple to the other. I've marked it all the way down, and I've connected a straight line. So I'm going to come on the half length, and I will open up this dart by 1/2 inch on each side. So once I open it up, I'm just going to connect it into each of the points there. So now this dart that I'm creating is actually it will help take off any form of bulge that would probably just, you know, be on the back, like give it a very good fit at the back. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this other center dart that would take out all the entire bulge that it would have had at the back. Remember, we don't have a zipper for this. So here I went in by 1/2 inch and I will connect it to the chest line, and then I'll connect it again to the length. Now, do you see the kind of shape that we have there? So we've succeeded in taking out any form of bulge that may have been on this top after we're done making it. Okay, so here I brought in my front because I need to know the measurement that I actually used to go down on this. So that part I measured 6 inches, and from my shoulder, from, you know, the shoulder slope to that part, I measured 4.5 inches. So here you see me going ahead to mark it. Here is 6 inches, here is 4.5 inches, and then the other side, the center part, is 6 inches. I'm bringing in my ruler and I will just connect it. So the thing here is, you could decide to just leave your back like this, but no, I wanted the depth, or rather my client, I'm not sure my client was going to like a back that high, so I just had to make the back a bit deeper than what I marked already. So I just came on the chest line and I went up by 1/2 inch, and I connected from that 4.5 to the 1/2 inch. So now this makes the back, you know, deeper and even more balanced. So I'll just go ahead and indicate the parts that I no longer want on this. But then on that line, because this is an off shoulder, so that will reduce any form of gaping at the back, I'm going inwards from that point by 1 inch, and I'm going to be creating a new armhole. I'm connecting it back into my armhole. This is to reduce gaping on the shoulder area of this off shoulder. So here, this is what I have here. The parts I'm marking are the parts that I no longer need, and I would just go ahead and use my scissors and cut this out. In case you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do well to subscribe to our channel. Hit on the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up if you like my videos, hit on the notification bell so that you're not going to miss any video when I post one. Thank you. So here it is. I'm going ahead to just cut out the darts, the center back dart, and then the inner dart here. Okay, so here it is. This is what it looks like. We have 2 pieces for the back. So by the time we cut this, we're supposed to have two pieces on each side, which means for the back we have 4 pieces, and for the front we have 4 pieces. So here is the pattern together. So next I'm going to bring in the fabric and I'll lay it down. So I've laid it down here. The next thing I'm going to do now, remember that this has a zipper, the center front has a zipper in front, and I have not added the allowance for that zipper yet. So here is me adding 1 inch on my center front for my zipper allowance. All right, please don't forget it. I added 1 inch for my zipper allowance, and then I'm going to go ahead and add 1/2 inch on round of this pattern. I'll add on the upper part, I'll add even on the down part, but then I will not add on the sides. I will not add on the sides. I'm going to add on the side. I'm going to just watch what I'm doing. I'm adding 1/2 inch all the way. So this is the 1 inch I added here for the zipper allowance. So I'm adding 1/2 inch all the way around the back, both the upper part except the down part. So same thing I'm doing here. I'm adding I'm adding half of an inch. This half of an inch is to stitch it. I need the allowance to stitch these things back together. But watch closely, I'm not adding any allowance on the sides because, I don't need it. So here are my patterns laid down. So next thing you see, this is the center front and this is the 1 inch zipper allowance I have marked. Please do not forget, except maybe you're not planning to add any, maybe you're planning to add your zipper at the back, then it's fine, which means this 1 inch is supposed to be at the back, but this is what it is like. So here is my fabric, my leftover fabric. I'm just going to work with this for my sleeve. So what I did for that upper part, there's really no measurement for this. Since it's going to have an elastic, you just mark what is fine, so I just went ahead to mark anything, because since I'm going to actually just add elastic that will bring it back together to become her size, I wasn't really bothered. So but when I used this to trace out the shape, I now remembered, before I cut it, I remembered that I was going to add an elastic, so I needed to add that measurement for the elastic first, and I added 1.5 inches that I'm going to be using to create the casing for my elastic. All right, so that 1.5 for my casing, and then I went ahead to do this again. Please don't get confused, there's really nothing that's wrong. It's just the fact that I forgot to add the 1.5 inches before now for my elastic casing. So I've just cut it out, and here is just what the sleeve looks like. Nothing special, just something straight, and then you create the armhole, and that's it. This is how I'm going to be folding when I'm going to add my elastic. So this is what it looks like. So here I'm going to still lay the patterns on my lining because I'm working with a lining for this. So I'm laying my patterns. I laid them down on my lining, and I still cut out the same shape. Notice I had not unpinned this before I put it on my lining. In case you have unpinned yours already, please, you are going to be using the main fabric, because remember you added half inch all the way around, so you need to use it because it's now bigger than the actual pattern. But I haven't, so here is me. I've cut out my lining for this. Now next, on my lining, next thing I'm going to be doing is that for my lining, I am going to be taking out 1 inch from my lining, because I didn't want, after I sewed this, maybe the lining would just be poking out from under. So I just took out 1 inch from the lining. So it means that the main fabric is 1 inch longer than the lining. So I did the same thing on all of my patterns. Do you see what it looks like here? Do you see? Main fabric is now longer than the lining, so I did the same thing for all of the patterns. The reason I'm doing this is just so that when I finish sewing, the lining doesn't poke out. So here is me unpinning so that I can actually go ahead to sew these things together. So here our job begins. This is the center back. You can see I just placed a notch to know that point is the center back, so that I don't get confused. So this is all of it laid down. I told you it's going to be 4 pieces, so I'll pick each of them and I will sew them together on their dart area. So this I'll pick to this and I will go and sew that way. The same thing I will do for the other side. So I'll just bring in my pins and just pin them together at this point, and once I'm done pinning them, I will also now pin the centers together, and I will head over to my sewing machine and sew. Yeah, I'm pinning the centers together at this point because I'm going to sew all of these sides. So this is what it looks like right now. So I'll take this over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew it so that you guys will see what it looks like. The same thing I just did here, I'm going to do the same thing for the lining. So now I'll bring in the front and I will, because I want to show you guys before I can take all to the sewing machine and sew it together. So I'll do the same thing for the lining. basically just same thing. So this is for the front. I've laid it down. It's also 4. So here you see me putting this that way. The curved parts, they're facing each other, and I'm going to go ahead and just sew them. Same thing for the lining. So here I've gone ahead to sew this on my sewing machine. This is what it looks like. The lining, the fabrics, these are what it looks like. So the next thing I would do is just to actually take this to my ironing table, and I would do an open press on each of the seams. You know, I will iron the seams open so that it lays really flat. So for the front area, because it has a curve, please, I ironed it with a tailor's ham. A tailor's ham is a tool that is used to iron curved edges. If you'd like me to make a video on how to create a tailor's ham, please do well to let me know in the comment section. So this is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to just open press it, like iron them open. I've ironed the seams open. Here is the back, that's the front, you know. That's just what it looks like. It's laying flat, and it's neater like this. So now with the right side of this fabric facing you and the right side of the lining facing the fabric, like you see me doing in this video, I will go ahead, I will sew the down together, sew the sides together, and I will sew the up together. The only thing I'm actually going to leave unsewn is the armhole area, because I will need to turn all of this out from the armhole. So here for the front, I'm going to go and add my zipper. This is the zipper that I want to use. Is a rainbow zipper. I think it's just sold for 100 or 200 naira in the market. I sent my girl to help me buy. So here is it. From the down part, I went up by 2 inches, sorry, 1.5 inches. Yeah, because I didn't want the zipper to really get down and I'll start struggling with it. So here I'm marking my 1 inch, a very faint line that I'm marking. I think I'm the only person seeing this line. So I'm marking it because I need to use that line to, you know, pin down my zipper. So here I'm facing the right part of the zipper on the right part of the fabric. You can see what I'm doing, right? So I'm going ahead to pin this. I'm pinning this, following the line that I had marked earlier. So here, this is what it looks like. So next, I opened up the zipper at this point again. You see? Then I will place the right part. Yeah, do you see? The right part also facing the right part of the zipper, like so. And then I'm going to align them properly, making sure that the down parts are equal, you know, the upper parts are equal and all. And I will go ahead, flip it over, and I will pin. So once I'm done doing this, pinning it, let me show you. This is what the front looks like. After you've sewn, this is what it's supposed to look like. Do you see? And then this is the back. So I'm just going to take this to my sewing machine and I will sew like so. Just the way you sew your zipper. So I have sewn the backs together and I've also sewn the front. So here, I'm going to be turning this over. Remember, I said I'm not sewing the armhole yet, because I'm going to be turning this over from the armhole. So I'm going to just turn all of this inside out from the armhole. So here is what it looks like after I was done. What I'm going to do next is just iron it so that it lays really flat and look very neat and beautiful. So this is the front. I've gone ahead to just sew it like I showed you guys. You see? Do you see the lines there? I've sewn it. So I will just bring in the lining at this point and also sew it together. So now the idea here is to cover up that zipper, the rough edges of that zipper. That's what we're going to work towards. So I opened this into 2 places, and do you see what this looks like? I'm going to later open it into 2 places so that each part is on its own, like dependent on it of itself. Then I will add the lining. So here you see me, I've done this. So what I did, do you see? I'm making sure the right side of fabric is facing the right side of lining. And then I will go ahead and sew the down part and the upper part. So here I've gone ahead to sew the down part. I also went ahead to sew the upper part, and then because that area is curved, I will just go ahead and notch it. I'm creating notches so that it will lay flat when I iron it. So I am done doing this now. The next thing I'm going to do, just to go ahead and sew the two linings. See, it's still open on the zipper side, on the zipper part, so I'm going to go ahead from the top. I will sew all the way down, and I will also sew the side closed here. So I have gone ahead to do all of that. Do you see what this looks like? I have sewn the zipper area, and I've also sewn the sides, and I'm going to cut the excess that I have. Notice the point when I'm cutting the excess, because I've held it, I've secured it, so I can now go ahead and cut it out, the zipper. And then here I'm flipping this over, like I'm turning this over inside out, so it gives a better and beautiful look. So this is the front area and this is the back. Okay, so here, this is what the front and the back, this is the back area. Do you see how neat the zip is laying? We've covered it up. We've ended up covering that rough edges of the zipper up. So this is what it looks like, and this is what the front and the back, these are what it looks like. I'll take it to the ironing table and just give it a very good press. So here I've given it a good press. It's looking actually neat. This is actually the back part, like the back part of this, the wrong side of this. This is the right side. Can you see how neat this is looking already when we're not even done? So here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be laying the two together like you're seeing me do, front side facing the upper part, and then I'm laying the right part of this fabric also on it. I want to pin this right now and insert my allowance. So the bust of my client is 38.5. Now, since this is now open, we're no longer dividing by 4 inches. We are going to be dividing each by 2 inches, like 2 halves. So 38 and a half, when I divided it, I had 19.25, and I inserted around that bust area. So for the under bust circumference, you see, when I inserted it, then I divided what I had by 2, so that I will put one half on one side and the other half on the other side. So for the under bust circumference, I have 32 inches, and if I divide by 2, it gives me 16 inches. Do you see what I'm doing? Whatever I have, I divide it by 2 and I insert it, the one half of it on one side. So here is the down part, 34 inches. When I divide by 2, I have 17. I went ahead to mark it, and then whatever I had left, I brought my tape and I divided it into 2, and I marked one half for one side. All right, so here I am connecting all 3 lines together. I will go ahead and I will just sew it down following that line. I've gone ahead to sew it down here, so I flipped it over and I did the same thing. I just realized this was not filming. Do you see the other half? So what I'm going to do now is just to mark the measurements from that point I had already sewn. I will just mark my 19.25 for the bust, my 16 inches for the under bust, and my 17 for the length, the circumference of the length of this blouse, and then just go ahead and follow that line and sew it. So I've gone ahead to sew it, and I'm flipping this over to the right side. This is what it looks like so far. It's coming together already. It's looking very beautiful. So here is my sleeve. I want to go ahead now and create casing for my elastic. So I'm creating casing on the upper part, and I'm also creating casing for the down part, and I'm doing this on both sleeves. So here is what it looks like. I've actually gone ahead to create my casing, and this is what it looks like. I used 1.5 inches both for the up and down to create the casing. This is my elastic. So now there's something I usually do when I'm making an off shoulder. First thing is, after I made this off shoulder, you realize that, you know, because of everything you're taking out and all that, it has really shortened so well. So I want to deepen. That's what I usually do on off shoulder. I want to deepen it by 1 inch. Do you see what I'm doing? So I will mark it, and I'm also going to take out an extra 1 inch from the front area. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm also taking out 1 extra inch. This is to give it balance and take off any form of, you know, give it balance around the armhole area. And also the 1 inch I took in from the front is just so that it helps the front to reduce any form of gaping, and just, you know, gives it this very balanced look. So this is what it now looks like. I went ahead now to sew the armhole and secure them together. So here I am measuring what I have for her round shoulder. The round shoulder of my client is 42 inches. And that 42 inches now, I am going to be measuring what I have for the front, and also measure what I have for the back. And I had 27 inches at the end of the day. 27 inches. So I'm going to check what I have remaining, and at the end of the day, what I had remaining was 16 inches. So which is enough. Please, when you do this, you make sure that you at least have like 15, 16 or 17 inches left. Do you understand? So you know it's actually enough. So here I am marking. I'm just going to cut out my elastic. My client's round shoulder, what I had, remember that what I had left was 16 inches. It means I'll divide it into two, because each sleeve has half of that. So when I divide it, that's 8 inches. And for the elastic, what I went ahead to just cut was 6 inches. I just took out 2 inches out of it. And here is me passing my elastic through the casing I've created. I'm holding it down here before I can continue, so that it doesn't keep pulling over. So I'm going to continue this all the way till the end. I'll do this also for the other part of this sleeve. Remember, we're still working on the upper part. We've not cut the elastic for the down part yet. So I'll pin this here, and I'll take out the safety pin. So I've done the same thing for the other right side. So here is the down part. The round sleeve of my client is 12 inches like I'm showing you, but what I went ahead to use for her elastic for the down was 9 inches. I cut out 9 inches for the down part of her elastic. I just took out 3 inches from it. The idea there is to not make it so tight. Do you understand? It shouldn't be so tight, and it shouldn't be so loose. You know, the person needs to still be comfortable when they wear it. Remember, I said her round sleeve is 12. I just took out 3 inches. So here I'm cutting 2 straps of this, because I actually need 2. I have 2 sleeves. I'm working on 2 sleeves. So here I'm also passing it on that casing. Every time I get to that point, I'll just pin it and I'll continue. So here I'll take it to my sewing machine, and I will hold it down. Here is it. I've gone ahead to just hold this down. I've worked on the both sleeves. Do you see what it looks like? I have gone to my sewing machine to actually put one of the sleeves. So here I'm going to use the other side to show you guys how I attached this sleeve. Okay, so here now, I'm going to lay the front side of the fabric. I opened this up. So right side of my fabric, yeah, like I showed you, will now be facing the right side. That's from the top there, and I will put it and I will pin it. What I did was, I actually had excess for this, but what I just did was, since it's actually an exaggerated sleeve, I had to push in that excess towards the armhole area. I didn't want to cut it out. So I did the same thing for the other side, right side facing each other. I'll pin it and I'll go ahead and sew it and bring it for you guys to see what it looks like. So here it is. I have gone ahead to sew this. Do you see what this looks like? I've gone ahead to use 1/2 inch to just sew it down. And then I'm now going to go to the sewing machine and I will follow this line from the bust area all the way down to the sleeve length. So here I am done doing this, and this is what the final look of this top is. This is just the final look of this top. So thank you so much guys for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.